Hello and welcome to Chess with Simon. I'm Simon. So we've got a new game going against Stuart, which is very exciting, and he's white this time. And so this is what I'm planning to play. I don't know what Stuart plays. I assume he plays c4, and I'm not going to play g6. I'm going to play e6 because Stuart's really good, and I want to change. And g6 is correct, particularly I think the Grunfeld's very correct. But I think this is really good, and now White has a choice of offering me the Nimzo here, the Queen's Indian here, or the Catalan here. I don't know what Stuart. Let's guess what Stuart plays. Let's guess Stuart plays the Queen's. Some people, of course, can play the Benoni or similar structures here, or related things. I will not be doing that. Or you can do this. You can say, well, actually, I want to play the Queen's Gambit declined all along. And because one of the ideas behind playing the Nimzo is the idea that it's too committal to play d5 straight away. And, maybe that's true, because White always has a slight pull in the Queen's Gambit declined. Maybe that's not true, maybe that's true. But that's the idea. And actually, even when you play d5 here, you've got more options, because if they take, you don't have to play the exchange variation you can take here. And in fact, I saw a Fischer game. There's a game by Bobby Fischer where he says, obviously Fischer doesn't usually play e6, he usually plays g6 and plays the Grunfeld or the King's Indian, almost always. But on this occasion he played e6, and then he said he wanted to play this way, ending up in some kind of semi-Tarrasch, because he just thought the exchange variation was kind of wood pushing, which the current world champion, actually not the current world champion, the current top rated player in the world, Magnus Carlsen, would disagree with, because he's a great expert in the Carlsbad structures which result from these sort of, if you take this way, right, you get to a kind of Carlsbad structure. Pawn on c6, probably bishop out here, pawn on e3. But anyway, we're not going to be heading for a Carlsbad structure, because we're probably not going to play an early d5 unless Stuart heads for a Catalan, in which case we will, because I'm not going to play a Benoni to the Catalan. So it proves to be a really interesting game, and of course I may change my mind completely tomorrow, because that's how it goes, but I probably won't. I'm quite excited. I mean, I think Stuart's got a very sort of elite type style, so I'm very curious to know what his response will be to a Nimzo or a Queen's Indian. So for today, given d4, it's knight f6. I'm not going to play the Dutch, although I have some sympathy with the Dutch. Key's taken my knight. I don't think there's any move you can consider except for taking the bishop. I think every other move probably loses. I mean, even bishop b4 check loses, because it plays c3 and I lose a piece. So I've got to take it. And I assume Keith's going to take it. And I assume I'm going to put my queen in the way. And I assume he's going to take, and I'm going to take with the bishop, and I'm going to castle. And I'm going to have the two bishops versus. So what I love about chess is its ability to, you say one thing, and then the next day you have to take it all back. So I was explaining how the King's Indian is not an aggressive opening, and it's basically about minding your own business, and it gives White a choice of what to do. But I think my opponent may be heading for a very aggressive line. I mean, here even, there's all sorts of possibilities, but basically these sort of lines, knight e1, knight d7, particularly bishop e3 here, which is actually the most common move, look at that, which accelerates black's attack, although it also puts a piece in. It also starts to smother the king. There's a Kasparov game on the channel where Kasparov wins in beautiful style against Korchnoi, which I will put a link to. I believe Korchnoi went b4 here, but don't quote me on that. Anyway, this is very sharp, because White's king is almost smothered in its own pieces, and Black's pawn storm is coming, and White's coming on the queen's side. And a lot of games are played in these lines. And they're incredibly double-edged and fascinating and beautiful, and wow. I hope we get a game like this, because it'll just be really interesting. I mean, okay, so the stats here favour Black, but you got to believe that White is better. Slightly. I think so. As long as Black doesn't play b6 there, doesn't look like a good move, does it? So the thing is, let's see, I'm jumping ahead of myself. You've got a castle here, because if you play e5, I actually played a tournament where the person playing me played e5, and then white takes, and you take the queen, and black loses the right to castle. So, it's hard playing early tournaments, isn't it? Because you get nervous and you forget your move order. But black's just going to castle and see what white comes up with. White's got options like h3 here, as well as bishop e2, bishop e3. So might head for a Petrosian structure, white. So you don't know yet. You don't know yet. I've had a look at this and I wonder, Liam, if this is not a draw. So black has one weakness here. And for white to attack it, white's going to have to get the rook attacking it and the king attacking it. How does white even arrange that? I mean, you've probably got to get the rook up here and the king here. But then I think black can probably check that king away. And even then black can train two defenders on the pawn. So then maybe white has to advance these pawns and try to get a passed pawn. But I don't know. I mean, so I'm not sure, but my guess is that I can hold the draw here. But also you've got to be careful, like even moves like this. Like, could white profit from this exchange? And the answer is maybe. Maybe. I'd need to look at that pawn endgame. And of course, I'm going to be lazy and just put it here and not have to calculate. Right? No disasters. If white pushes the pawn, I play check here and play for a win. Okay. I don't think Liam will do that. Liam's really good at chess. I've known Liam for a long time. Okay. It's your move, sir. This one, Gary, again, I'm defending another one where we've got an equal number of pawns and I've got a minor piece versus a rook. This one I think is much harder to hold because there are more pawns and I think there are more weaknesses. If I hold this, it's going to be really a miracle. But I'm not ready to resign it because I think it'll be very interesting to see Gary win it. I think I had to sack a miner for those two pawns because I think those pawns were going through, connected pawns with that rook, without the king's close. I think my calculation was they were going through, and instinctively you'd think they're very, very dangerous. Okay, this one I think I've won against Joseph because I just think the rook behind the passed pawn is going to deflect the king, but I'm also going to take my king around and hope to get to lock black's king out with the rook by cutting off, and then just have my king versus the rook with the extra pawn, which probably wins by force sort of thing, without having to deflect the enemy king. In other words, you know, if you had a rook on d1 and the king on c3, and then you just pushed, and the king couldn't get to it, I think my king could force the pawn through, or force the rook to sack itself, and then that really is over. Horde coach is taken back, and I'm going to take, and this is quite, I still think black's winning this, but it ain't easy. So here, 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 I think I expect this, but I think if I go here and then put the queen behind the rook, you know, like this, like this, like this, like this, sort of thing, then I think I take twice here and I'm really breaking through. But it's tough. It's tough, but right now I'm committed to this strategy, which is, and that's okay. It's not a bad strategy. I think black's just won this. I mean, I'm pretty tempted to resign. I think what Horde Coach has done really well here is to eliminate these pawns, which were the only danger. But once you lose your forward pawns, everything's so slow for white, and I think black's just going to start chomping through the pawns from the back. So I'm going to play a move, but, you know, not with a deep conviction that, I mean, maybe the danger is chomp, because everything else is sort of defended. So maybe I defend for now, and I hope for an earthquake. But at some point I'll resign this, because there's no point in watching something that's obviously lost. I mean, this one I think I'm going to win by the look of it. Managed to win a piece. Pretty combination. Please go back to previous episodes to watch it. Oh, come on, we'll look at it now. What happened was this. Basically got the bishops, got some pins going. So you take the knight. The knight can't take because it's pinned. The king can't take because the knight drops, so the rook takes. Then there's a check. King can't stay in touch with the knight on f6. No way. So So you just pick up the knight, which was nice. And also, as it happens, even if you take off the bishop, rook and rook, I think white wins that pawn endgame with a protected passed pawn. So feeling confident about this one. Weirdly, the rook can't break through and check the king because it can't go here and it can't go there check. So oddly, the tactics are working out really tricky for black. If black attacks the bishop, you take here and defend it. Okay, so what's happened is, I should know this person's Alex. Alex is throwing down the gauntlet. Alex is saying, yeah, let's do it. Let's go classical King's Indian. Now white can take on e5. What white can do here, actually, just for the record, is kill the game. I saw Peter Lecco demonstrating this. I mean, it's well known. You can kill it, takes, and then I think, isn't knight d5 just like... I mean, you can play bishop g5 as the most common, but I think knight d5 really kills it. c6, bishop c4, and it's like, you know, from the black side, pretty hard to win that. Because some players are playing the King's Indian to win, you know, as black. And for that reason, this can be a tricky variation. I'm not doing that. I'm just saying black can fianchetto and mind his own business, and it's sound. That's all I'm saying, is I'm claiming it's sound. I think it is sound. e5. Main line is to castle here. Other moves are available. Here I've been lucky enough to win a piece, which is lovely. So now I've just got to defend the bishop, stroke, stop the pawn moving, stroke, threaten the swap of queens. But enjoyed the game, and please feel free to challenge me again if it comes to an end at some point. Here I did have an idea. Well, I had an idea against Justin. You've always got to be careful against Justin because he's so good. I had an idea just to swap off the queens, but that's probably a bad idea because queen and knight work well together and black's king is exposed. So let's not do that. Instead, let's have a think. I don't know what to do. This one, I'm a rook up, right? Check. Gotta move there. I don't think much is going wrong there, but you know, you never can tell. Yeah, Justin. This one against Ian, I'm optimistic here. Look, takes, pawn takes, check, king there, check and mate. Don't think Ian's going to fall for that. But what on this move, what do we think white will actually do? Because what black is threatening is to put the queen here, and then, you see, just let's assume, of course white would never do this, let's assume white just passes. Queen here is really powerful because you've got a check there and you're threatening to take there. You've unpinned. By moving the queen here, you've created a threat, you've unpinned, so you're threatening to take here. So black is building up some threats, and they look to be crystallizing more quickly than white's threats, but Ian's very good, so I'm not counting my chickens. I'm just explaining my thinking. My mother always taught me, don't count your chickens until they hatch. What's he played? He's taken off that bishop. Well, that's a good move, isn't it? Because that bishop was instrumental in lots of the combinations we just talked about. Okay, well, almost every day of the week I'm taking that. Probably every day of the week. But, okay, here, look, bishop e3, which I think is a Sam Shankland type move. The point is, white's not going to castle into black's attack. And maybe that's okay. Maybe black just says, that's all right, because I'm just trying to show that the defense is sound. Might play knight g4, might not. It's good in a way. It's taken it in a more interesting, original direction. This game against Ian, I think I can defend the pawn. So a variation I looked at is like this, takes. Oh no, you don't take, because if you take that, you go here, attacks the rook, then the knight can kind of jump out, and black's won a pawn, and we don't want that. So we're going to go here, and we're going to... Well, I want to defend this. It's a bit passive to defend the pawn with a rook, but I'll have to. It's a really good knight here. I'm assuming this pawn's not running away, because you can't really save it. And I'm going to not defend with the f rook, because I need to keep an eye on the f2 pawn, because, you know, black could create some activity, I think, here. So I think this is... I don't think the rook's doing much in a1. I'm going to play this. And I'm claiming white's got an advantage to the best of my understanding. That may change over time. I'm sorry, Justin, not to that. It's a sort of a... I mean, I don't want to take the queens off. But, you know, white hasn't really got much of an attack. I mean, I don't... What would the endgame look like? Might be okay. Might be okay, the endgame. The problem is I got my pawns on dark squares. Not that great. Okay, good old Nick. Look at this. Really, when you start out playing chess and you play things like this Spanish opening and the Queen's Gambit Decline, you can never dream you get to a position like this, isn't it? Beautiful, beautiful strategic thing, you know. C4, B6, fianchetto, you know, really indirect. So E4, A6 to take away the B5 square from my knight, but also maybe one day play the B5 break. Not immediately. And then the obvious move for white is to play d4 and get a kind of Maroczy type position, although it's a bit different because the bishop's sitting there, which I think is actually probably a better square, and various tactics are available to white. So it's beautiful and still highly theoretical. You know, it's sort of a hybrid between a modern and a classical position, that's the point. It's both of us are, well, Nick's a bit more modern, but we're both... Well, I'm playing a hybrid between modern and classical. Oh, come on. I'm starting to give in to these program moves. You've got to take with a knight, don't you? I'm not going to take with a queen. You know. Yeah. I'll have to think about that. I mean, it's correct. And it's beautiful. But I don't know what to do next. In takes, blah, blah, blah. This one, this one. Is that all of them? Is it all of them? Do we go to chess.com? I'm going to have to close live chess down when we go to chess.com because the computer's been struggling to cope with everything that's been going on. I think I need a better computer. Okay, my claim is that I'm waiting for Nigel. Nigel, we're waiting for your move. I'm puzzling over the Justin game because I just think swapping queens off is a retrograde step, probably an endgame in which I'm slightly worse. But I don't really have an attack. I don't know what to do, and I think pushing c5 is also retrograde because it's going to make the endgames less good. But I might be persuaded to push. But I just think all the pawns on dark squares is bad for the endgame. It's probably bad for the middle game as far as I know. But anyway, okay. Right, let's go to chess.com. So here, look, this is a beautiful... We've had a few moves here. Black got a bit of initiative against me, although I was material up. Look, it struggles a bit. Black got an initiative against me. If we just go back a few moves, here, like this, here, bypass, here, bypass, push, there, takes, then the king comes in, then I push, then this. I assume that my rook just needs to attack this pawn now, and rook to the back fails because I just take the pawn. I think they've got to go passive with the rook. I can't see how black can avoid going passive. And then, you know, even... Well, I wouldn't play this because you drop a pawn. You probably push. Or maybe... Probably push. I don't know, I mean, basically white wins this somehow. White wins this somehow. But for now, we just got to get this under control. But, you know, this is 2 pawns up, right? So white should win. Probably white's got a slightly better position. This game is really interesting, isn't it? Kind of beautiful. And I think what we do is we take this bishop that's doing nothing, and we pin the knight against the queen with the risk of opening the f-file. And it's only attacked once and defended twice, but it's going to be a pain. And you know, and also the queen's working hard to defend that knight as well. So it's just putting pressure on the. It's creating the potential for tactics later. This one, Rook's Rule. Should we just see how the table's going on Rook's Rule? See who rules on Rook's Rule. Well, I'm battling it out with Sealpuffer now, and we're almost came to the point of no return because 2 people qualify. This has been grinding on. 97% complete. It's been grinding on. We've been doing a lot of rook endings. And I kind of think that the best opening, although no one in my group has copied this, some of the strong players, I'm not going to pretend I'm a strong player. Some of the strong players are copying my opening, which is this, which is develop the rooks like amateurs. Bobby Fischer once developed a rook like this in one of his games, in one of his Nadorf games, right? Against Paul Keres, I believe, when Paul Keres uncooked a novelty. And I think Keres sacrificed his queen. Beautiful thing. Anyway, here we develop the rooks like amateurs and we get them active, and actually it's working out really well for me in this. I think we're better here. I think in the other game against this person we're slightly better, so we're going to take back with a pawn. I think we're slightly better because black doesn't have much freedom. Freedom's so important, isn't it? Freedom's one of the great things. Okay, take here. Got to take back with a pawn. And the white king can't enter because there's 2 squares are covered and there's no pawn breaks. That's the key. That is the key in this position. And white's got double pawns, so black may have a little edge, although it's not clear. Here, beautiful, complex positional game. We're going to reroute the knight here towards the black king side, and we're going to hope to create some threats. But I think white might be like 0.2 better. Like, I think it's marginal. Here we're just creating some space by swapping pieces off. Next we'll put the queen on f6. Just to try and get some breathing space. Black's got a weakness on d6, so I don't think black can be better. And this is really hard, actually. I'm going to play queen c7. Connect the rooks. Am I? Yeah. No, but what about rook here, though? Maybe I should just go out and fight for this file. Maybe I should play queen. Actually, didn't I not think of playing queen f6? Start to explore that windy king, so I put pressure on that knight. I guess the knight comes here. I guess maybe we threaten to snap it off. Because actually, yeah, this knight against this bishop, I mean, this knight is a beauty. This knight against this bishop would be fine. This bishop's basically like a big pawn, isn't it? So yeah, knight here, then we can swap it with the bishop. In fact, maybe we think even further ahead and we put the bishop here to cover this square. Isn't chess about thinking ahead? Isn't that like the whole point of chess? Oh, it's so deep. So deep. Okay, here we've missed it. I've played a couple of moves. This looked loose. I attacked this weak pawn, put a rook behind it. I now think that when I put a knight on e5, the whole thing's just going to implode for black because, for instance, takes, we take, takes. So we've got bishop coming here, which is nasty. We've got rook coming here, which is really nasty because it allows the queen to take here. I don't think black's got much counterplay. I think the king is so windy that I don't think white is winning, but I think white has some threats going. Yeah. And, you know, basically this bishop, the point is this bishop's attacking the pawn, that's the point. And sure, the pawn can advance and attack my bishop, and maybe then it takes, you know, I mean, you know, this is possible. I mean, maybe I put the bishop on that square, but this is possible. But, yeah, I don't know. It just doesn't feel like you can't take here because knight takes with check, so you got to take the knight. It's just similar, isn't it? You know, I suppose there's no pawn on pre, but it doesn't really matter. Well, there's, in fact, here, no, you can't take this with check because the bishop goes back, but you threaten to take this with check. I think I like the look of white. 4 pawn attack, opening book club. Ooh, not many points on, are there? 86% complete. You know, I love all these chess.com tournaments when you go through rounds and rounds. When I first started going on that, I never qualified. I never qualified for anything. I always got knocked out in the first round. And then all of a sudden you just start qualifying. And like these days, I don't want to overpush this, but if I try, I usually qualify to the final round, which is sometimes, you know, and it's it's a long grind. It's a good grind. You learn a lot about, if it's thematic, you learn a lot about an opening. So this one, you've got to believe White's got some enormous attacking chances. I mean, that pawn is annoying, but at some point Black... I looked at Queen here, Queen e7, so if Queen takes, we win. But if you just play Rook d7, it's awful. I think we've got to lift the Rook and just try a kingside attack. But you know what? It's so sensitive. I'm going to think about it. But that's what I think. This one, we had a bit of a little tricky combination here. White castled. We took the queen. But now our queen is hanging. But we can get the queen out of attack by check here. King moves. Now we're going to take the bishop. I think we're a whole queen up in the opening, which means I think we might be getting the points here. I mean, it's not much fun to play for White, that, is it? You know, at some point, you just think, let's try again. Here with Josh, I like to pretend I've sacrificed a piece, but in fact I blundered a piece. Bishop g5, queen here, threatens checkmate and threatens the bishop. Have to do this to stop the mate. Takes. And now, I should analyse this in more detail, but I'm just in a blasé way going to play queen b3, which threatens mate here, threatens to take here, backed up by the rook. I've done not a lot, but I've done a fair bit of the variations here. I think it's going to be all right. I think I may get away with this, which is naughty because I made a mistake. Well, but you know, I did have a positional advantage. Sometimes if you build up a positional advantage and you blunder, aspects of it remain. I don't know what to do here. It's a really cagey game. Here, look, so I played knight bd7. White's played d4. So I always thought c3 wasn't the critical line, but also White, it's not a bad move, and White's still better. Reti opening number 2. What are the positions? Positions are I'm getting mullered, but I still hold hope of being one of the top 2. 99% completes right near the end. I think there's 6 people left in it or something. Yeah, and I've played a lot of them before in the previous rounds, round 6. So the thing is, the Reti's a great opening, isn't it? The Reti, the English, the King's Indian attack, they're all kind of related. This one, don't know what to do here. I mean, e6, I mean, I'll probably play e6, but I'll take a look at it first. I'll probably play e6. I think this is chaotic, but I think I'm doing fine here. So we just throw a check in and just feel that that's going to be good. I think that's going to be good. And if the white king comes back, you got another check here. You might even be mating here. I don't know. Should we just do a fantasy variation? Check, king runs, check. If the king goes here, you pin the queen against the king. So kind of here. Check. Oh, it's almost mate, isn't it? Look. You can sort of feel that. Oh no, the bishop goes in the way. Does it though? But does it? Maybe the bishop. Nah, I mean, yeah, I think that's. I think that might be about to go. Show the world your chess skill. Look. It's my tourney. When in the next one we'll look at some more of those games. It's just I've been struggling to get as much insight on the games on chess.com because I know a lot of the guys on live chess, which just makes... I think chess is more interesting when you know the people you're playing, because I think it's basically a social activity. So consequently, it's more meaningful when you know who you're playing, because you've got history and you know that they play the French or that they beat you in the last round of some important thing or I don't know what. And so it's game against, I think there's a game against Aaron, yeah. This game against Aaron. She played 1e4. Should we play the Caro Khan defense? Very solid, isn't it? Play e5. Let's play e5 and see what she's got. Okay, but before we go to bed at 20-1, let's do a puzzle. Let's do a chess puzzle. White's move. What would you play as white here? So I don't really know. I mean, okay, so Queen H4 check looks quite hard to meet. Let's just have a little look at this. Queen H4 check. King can't move back because then you take here. King has to move here. Okay, I'm really not going to get this one. Take here. King takes. Bishop check. Okay, my instinct is we take and check with the bishop, and I can't even explain why. Oh, I love it. Honestly, so often when you guess it goes wrong, but sometimes when you guess it goes right. So you got to believe the bishop check, right? Just bringing extra pieces in, and then what's going to happen? King's going to run. King runs here, and then is there a queen check here? Well, I don't know. I just think there's a bishop check. Yeah. Sometimes gambling's so satisfying. Although it's wrong. You probably shouldn't do it. I probably shouldn't do it. But then I don't know what the answer is. So at some point you can't do it mathematically. Check here. King there. Do we want to draw? We're a rook down, aren't we? Is this one of those drawing ones? Because the king looks like it can slip out. Well, maybe not. Maybe if we check here, king goes there. We're mating there, aren't we? Check here, king goes there. We're mating. I think we check here. Because I think then the mate threat's pretty grim. Well, not grim for us. Grim for our opponent. If we check here, king slips out. But if we check here, phew, check here, king there, check here. Yeah, I think it's this. Gosh. That's why the early moves were hard to see, because it's actually quite a long sequence. And I don't know, there's probably people that are better at it than me, but humans sometimes struggle to see a long sequence because we're not computers, are we? And we never will be. That's why chess is an art as well as science. Hope you're all well. Look forward to seeing you soon.